we'll start over again. What year were you born, and where were you born at?
I was born in Wauchula, Florida in 1934, 10/4/34.
What was that place like? What was that where you were born at? What was that place like? Was it a small place? Was it a big place? Was it?
Yeah, it's a little bigger than Kingston, but not. It wasn't a big place as far as a town.
Was there a lot to do, or just like a store and a couple little shops, or what was it?
I really don't know. I have not been back there, I don't guess, since I was born.
So, did your mom and dad move you out of there right after you were born?
Did they what?
Were you moved out of there right after you was
Yes,
born?
yes.
You were. Where did you guys move to after that?
Moved to Ortona.
Is that in Florida?
There in Florida, yes.
Okay. What was your mom and dad's name?
My dad's name was Hampton Eugene Walker. Mama's name was Fannie Lee Fussell at the time because her previous husband had died, but her maiden name was Fannie Lee Mims.
You had told me before how he died. Do you remember how he died? Her first husband?
Yes, he had a heart attack, and what caused that, he drank some, whatever it is they use in a meat market back then to cleanse the floor. It was put in a closet, and he got in some of it thinking he was drinking alcohol, and it gave him a heart attack, and he didn't last no time.
Gotcha. Now, did they have any kids before she met Granddaddy?
Pardon?
Did she have any kids before she met Granddaddy?
She had the 6 kids by Elias Fussell.
Gotcha. All right. Was that all boys and all girls, or what was the split there?
Was it what?
Was it all boys and all girls?
No, it was the 3 boys and the 3 girls, and then
Okay.
Mama had us 3 girls, me, Betty, and Arlen, by Daddy.
Gotcha. Let me look here. What kind of jobs did your mom and dad work?
Mama worked at a sewing factory, and Daddy, he worked on the WPA. Is that WPA? Yeah, that was what it was back then, yeah.
Was that under Roosevelt? Was he the president? Was Roosevelt the president that put that into action?
I didn't understand you.
So was Roosevelt the president that put the WPA into action?
I think so.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I somewhat remember that. How long did he? What all did he do for the WPA?
How long did he work?
What all did he do there? Was he building the bridges?
They worked roads, and pretty much just the road is what Daddy done.
Gotcha. Well, when did you get to Arkansas?
We moved to Arkansas in June of '71. Robert Earl just graduated, and we had everything loaded and ready to pull forward.
So you raised the whole family in Florida and moved, just abandoned ship and moved to Arkansas.
Right.
Is this the first house you moved into, or?
Gene Farmer's, he had his feed in there for his cattle. And Robert and Bill Thigpen, Charlie Roberts, and Marvin Williams had come up here to check out a place to live. And Robert found that's the only place he could find that was empty in this area. So he asked Gene, would he consider renting that to us? And Gene said, just move in it like it is. Robert said, well, he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pay you something. He said, well, give me $50 a month. And he said, it's yours. So that's what we done. He moved his feed barrels out, and we moved in.
Was it this house right here, or was it a different one?
This what?
Was it this house, or was it a different one?
It was a different one.
It was
over by where David Drina lives.
Okay, gotcha.
And, yeah.
How long have you lived in this house?
We've lived in here for 48 years. Your mama, the year she was born in '76, we had Phil Sprinkle, his brother, and his dad at times. to build the house for us, and we moved in here out of the shanty next door, and Robert, Earl, and Wendy moved in there. So they lived there, and we lived here.
So the building just right outside your front porch, that's where you guys lived at before you moved into this house?
No, before we moved in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we lived before we moved here, yeah.
There was in between times.
There was?
After they moved from Gene's house, Dad bought a place called the Rayback Place. It's over there toward Liberty.
Okay.
Past Dan Norman on out that way.
Okay.
And then he bought that from Rayback. I forget his first name. But Rayback owned this place here.
Gotcha.
And then Dad and him done some horse trading, and Rayback and Dad traded places, and that's where Dad got to here. And then they moved in that house into what she called the shanty, right over there.
Gotcha. Alrighty. Let's see. What was your hold on, let me see what I got here. How many places did you live in Florida before you moved up here?
We lived in Florida when I was little and until Arlen was born, 5 years there. We moved to Lakeland, Florida. We lived there for, I guess it was about 1.5 years, and Daddy wanted to go back to Ortona. So we moved back down there, and we lived in Citrus Center for a short spell of time, probably a couple of years. And then Daddy got hired by the Atlantic Coastline. We moved over to Ortona there, and he worked on for the coastline there, and he opened the bridge, the Caloosahatchee River. That was his job, to open that bridge when the boats would come through going one coast or the other. And he worked and retired there. And let's see, and then with Robert and I, we got married, and while Daddy was still working there at the bridge, and then we went to Sanford, Florida. Robert and I did, with 2 babies, Robert Earl and Renelda, and then 57, we moved from Sanford back to Ortona. Robert got out of the Navy, and we lived there until 71. We had built a house. When we got out of the Navy, our house was ready to move into, and in 71 we moved up here.
So you finished your house and then moved up here right after you got done?
Yes.
What year did you meet Granddaddy?
Oh, mercy. I was in the 3rd grade.
So you just knew each other all the way up?
He was as mean as a striped snake. Him and that brother Earl of mine, they were just inseparable. And they was at each other's house one night or twice, 3 times a week. And but then Robert, when he come over there, him and Early, if they ever caught me outside, they'd catch me and set me down in a cow pile. That's not very nice, but anyway, that's the way them 2 things treated me. But we got them one time, Early and Robert. They had went coon hunting, and at that time, if you caught a possum or a coon, you cut off one of their front feet. You take it to the, I don't know what they call them.
The taxidermist?
Yeah. And you get some money for a quarter. Well, me and Martha, Robert's sister, we found out about that. So they pulled their jackets off where they had come back from hunting one night. And the next morning, Martha had spent the night with me the night before. We went out there and we got their coon and possum feet. We put them in a paper towel and put them in our coat pockets, and we took them to LaBelle, where we were going to school at the time, and we got the quarters for the feet. Well, now Early and Robert, now that didn't go over too big. We got told off really, really well. But anyway, they were two fellas. I'll tell you what, they were just. Never did I realize I'd finally marry that thing. But I'll tell you what.
What year did you end up marrying him?
Pardon?
What year did you end up marrying him?
Got married?
Yeah.
1952, June the 20th, 21st. Yeah.
Let's see here. Now, did you work at all whenever you guys were married, or did he do most of the work and you just raised babies?
I worked in the ceramic shop out here, and I worked for about 6 weeks. Me and Naomi Thigpen down at the sawmill in the Handle. Me and David was our helper, and we worked there about 6 weeks, and we retired there. That was it.
Now, what did Granddaddy do for work?
He
whenever you
was
guys-
a sawmill, owned the sawmill down there at Kingston. And then when he had his heart attack in 1988, he gave it to Robert Earl. And Robert Earl run it until he got disabled with that head condition and passed on. And then it got sold, and here we are today.
He cut sod in Florida.
Yeah, in Florida, yeah.
Did he?
And he actually dug what they call a cabbage palm. Residential areas in Miami and all over down there, that was a decorative tree that you could cut out of somebody's pasture, and they done it with one of them real sharp pointed long shovel.
Yeah, sharp
And then-
shovel.
Then when they made enough money, he got him a ditch witch and cut them out like that, and then picked them up with a winch truck and set them on, and then took them to wherever to sell them.
Gotcha.
He was doing that before he come here.
Did he ever work on the railroad? Did you tell me something about that?
That's Granddaddy.
That was.
That was
That
Granddad,
was her,
my
her
dad.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Not he worked at the railroad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
he
did.
retired there.
Gotcha. How long did he work there?
Pardon?
How long did he work there?
I can't tell you that because I really don't know.
Gotcha.
He was working there when we left Florida, wasn't he?
No, he had retired. You know, him and Pat had built that big home down there, and he had retired when we.
It was Trestle, Caloosahatchee River.
Gotcha.
Granddaddy, his job was when the boats come through. This is a railroad trestle now. He would go and rowboat out to the middle of that railroad trestle, and it had a key. This big old, the thing was 8 foot long. It looked like a drill chuck, you know. And he'd pick that thing up and stick it in the hole and go round and round and round and round, and then that whole train trestle would turn sideways, and then them big boats could come through there. You know, and it was a series of locks and dams through that river. And then when they got out of there, then he'd go back over there and do the same thing and put it back where it's supposed to be so the train could come back across.
That's right. And a lot of times, many times, Mom and Daddy were people. I tell you what, they loved people. Daddy would tell him, he said, "Hey, Captain, pull over there and tie up to that piling over there." He said, "Come on over and have dinner or breakfast, whatever the time of day, with me and the wife." And a lot of them would. And it was just, it was right up their alley. They loved that. Oh, yes.
What? You said Granddaddy was in the military.
He's what?
My great grandpa was in the military. How long was he in the military for?
How long was Daddy in the Navy?
Oh, 11 years.
11 years.
Uh-huh.
You said he got out in '57. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
57.
This is one that Millie told me to ask you. She asked if you had any advice for couples who are just getting started and any people who are just now starting families. What would you say for a young family getting started?
Well, number one, be seated in the love of God. Know Him as your Lord and Savior, because you're going to need Him. That's first and foremost. And other than that, I can't tell you, because that's all that me and Robert done. Robert was a very good provider. But after he met the Lord, when we moved up here, we prayed over just about everything. We really did. I know when he first got saved over Elkhorn, Brother Doyle Root was preaching. And that night, Robert, Jack Daniels, Greg Thigpen, I think that was the only three. But when old Doyle got through preaching that night, the altar was open, and those three men went and gave their lives to the Lord. Well, after that, I was so happy. I just, like my sister Maureen, she called me and was telling me how thankful she was that Robert had met the Lord. And she said, but she called me Wani. She said, Wani, she said, I know you're happy, but she said, Robert Collier is no better off. She said, because he was the best man in the world anyway. She said, he's just ready to meet his Lord now. I said, you got it.
What was it, just piggybacking off of that one, what was it like for you and Granddaddy whenever you guys first started building a family? Was it hard, being a younger couple and having a couple of kids, or what was it like for y'all?
It's never been hard, Tristan. It was just a beautiful life. We've had a wonderful life. We have, and Robert was always a provider. If a need come up, he knew some way, somehow, to get out and make that dollar that we had to have for that, to meet that need. I've never known us to. I know we've got behind times, but it didn't take us long to crawl out. And God was always with us, and Robert was a wonderful provider, a daddy. And his family was all that meant anything to him. When y'all wouldn't come over, you had something else to do, y'all, David and Robert Earl, if there was anything you had to do on that weekend, well, Robert didn't appreciate that. He wanted his family right around that table there. And he'd say, well, they could have done that on another day. They didn't have to take off this weekend. But anyway, he was a family man. I just thank God for him.
He used to have a butcher shop just right over here in your yard, didn't he?
Oh, yes.
How long did he have that?
How long?
Yeah.
Oh, well. We had the Madison House, and that was old Ray Prepper, so that's when Robert started his woodworks, was with Ray Prepper. And
that meat house didn't last very long.
Okay. I didn't know.
4 or 5 years.
no,
maybe.
that was with Brother Bill Thigpen.
That didn't last for about 4 or 5 years, did it?
No, it didn't.
Brandon had found an old knife out of there, and he redid it. I don't know if he told you about that or not.
Big one?
The big one, yeah.
Yeah, it was in her drawer in there.
Yeah, had a bunch
got it out and gave it to him.
Had a bunch of chips out of the blade from
Yeah.
him. Yeah, I just thought that was really cool. You said he was a woodworker too?
Oh, yes. He made that, whatever in the world that thing is over there.
That little table sitting in there.
That coffee table. He made those
He didn't
wall
build that
units
coffee
there.
table.
He made a bed frame for Wendy and Robert Earl, but Tiffany has it now. And I don't know, he's refaced all of my kitchen. He was very, very good. He was. Enjoyed it so much.
What were some, this is just kind of a question I had, what were some of your favorite foods that your mom and dad made for you, and did your mom teach you how to cook?
Oh, Mama made chicken and, well, everything she cooked was so good, but her chicken and dumplings, and Lord, she could take bins and fix the best old stew or roast. Daddy wanted to try a coon one time that that had got in the corn crib, and he was fat as a hog. And Daddy said, I want to kill that dude and have you cook it for me. Well, our next to the oldest son, Jinx, him and his wife was there, Daryl and Paul and all of their mama and daddy. And Mama had cooked that old coon, and she was sitting there enjoying that. She said, this is the best pork roast I have ever ate in my life. And Daddy looked at Ma and winked at her, and she said, what'd you wink at her for? And Corley did. And Daddy said, Corley, he said, that is not pork roast. She said, well, it most certainly is. Look at his bone here. And he said, you ever seen a pork roast, a pork ham hock, or like that little? She said, well, what do you think it is? He said, I don't think nothing about it. He says, it's that old big fat boar coon that's been coming in my corn crib out there. And he said, I wanted to see what he tastes like. He said, tastes pretty good too. Ah, Lord Jesus.
Oh, man. What were some times that were, I don't know what you'd say, like what were some crazy times and what were some just real interesting things that happened to you and Granddaddy and you or just anybody whenever you was growing up?
Well, I know I got a story I'll tell you on Miss Betty. She was our little Down syndrome. Her and Arlen was, I guess, about 1 and 3, 1 and 4, somewhere around there. Anyway, we didn't have a shower or a bathtub like that. We had a great big old cistern on the outside of our house there at the railroad where Daddy worked. And Mama had a great big old oversized sink in the kitchen, so that's where she bathed the 2 little ones. And the rest of us, we bathed in a wash tub in the closet in there. But anyway, Mama bathed Betty, went and put her panties on her and set her in front of, we had a big old fireplace. And the floor was level, it wasn't up like mine is here. And she just set her in a chair right before that fireplace there, and Daddy had a little fire in there. It was cool. And all of a sudden, Mama heard a bullet go off. And she walked there to the door, and she said, Daddy, he was sitting on the front porch on the railroad side. She said, Daddy, what did you shoot? He said, it come from in there, Fanny. It's not out here. She said, no, it didn't. And I walked over there, and I heard them talking, and I looked at Betty, and she had dribbles of blood coming down her chest like that. And I said, Mama, Betty's been shot. She's bleeding. And she run there to her, and Daddy was in there by that time, and he said, my God, Fanny, he said, there's a bullet. He had he had a big chest over in the corner of the room, of the living room, had a lock on it, and his bullets was in there. And he'd take them, and right there he had a chair. He'd take those bullets and clean his guns and whatever. And some way or other, one of those 22 bullets had dropped on the floor. And when we swept the living room, we just naturally just swept it right into the fireplace. Well, it ignited, and that's what went into her chest. And of course, we didn't run to the hospital with everything then like we do today. She called Brother Lonnie and Sister Anita Williams, pastor of the church there in Ortona. They come over with his dad and his mother, and they put in praying. Well, she was laying with her eyes closed on the couch just like she was out, but she still had a pulse. They prayed and prayed and prayed till about 2 o'clock in the morning. Betty finally opened her eyes and she started singing that song. Farther along, we'll know more about it. Farther along, we'll understand why. And Brother Lonnie's daddy said, Fanny, he said, God has come through for Betty. And she never took her to a doctor, not one time. But no telling how many years later, I'll think of his name in a minute. Over here in Huntsville, I was there. We had took her in. Arlen and Roy and Betty was here. We took her over there because we thought she had pneumonia. And he said, well, it won't take me but a minute to find out. So he went in there and x-rayed and he come back and he said, she doesn't have pneumonia. But he says she's got a foreign object in her heart. Arlen looked at me and she sort of grinned and he said, what's the grin about? And Arlen said, tell him, Juanita. So I told him about the incident with the bullet. He sat there and tears running down his face. He said, I've never heard nothing like this. Ever. But just as sure as God made little green apples, that was a witness, that was a testimony of Betty being healed that day of that bullet going into her chest, in her heart. But that was on record over there at Huntsville today, I guess. The other time, that little brother of mine, Early, he was the youngest of Mama's 6 with her first husband. Daddy worked at and this was before the bridge too. Daddy worked at the locks, right there just a quarter of a mile from where we lived by the railroad, at the U.S. government lock. And one afternoon, Early and I were out playing. We had, just like we have out here in the backyard, we had that big Caloosahatchee River that run by. We had a dock. We had a boat tied to it. Daddy did. Early got out on the back of the boat. We had a paddle, and he was paddling one way back and forth, still tied to the dock. But he got overbalanced. He fell into that river. And naturally, he was gone. I run to the house. Daddy had just come in from his day's work at the government lockup there. He had that insurance man that was there visiting with him. I waited for my turn to say something, and Mama said, Juanita, what do you want? I said, I was 4 years old. I said, Early is in the bottom of that river. He fell off of the boat. And Mama said, Eugene, you better go. So the insurance man dismissed himself. Daddy went out there, clothes and all, throwed his Prince Albert tobacco can out and his car keys on the dock there, and down he went in that river. Well, he come up and he went down, he come up and he went down a space of at least 45 minutes. Finally, at last, we saw him coming up. And Early had on a little old overall, short, cut off breeches with the jalousies up here. Daddy had his hand hooked in the jalousies, and he was making his way back up to the dock. Early was, naturally, he was out. And Daddy took him and laid him up on the dock there and started doing CPR on him, which he had learned down at the locks. And he worked and worked and worked, and finally at last there was bloody water and the shell and sand started coming out of his nose and his mouth. And Mama said, keep praying, keep praying. She said, he's coming out of this. And I don't know how long it lasted, but they finally realized that he was breathing again, and Mama took him, put him in the bed. And that was like at 4, probably quarter till 5 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And that night at midnight, he screamed out, "Mom, I'm in the bottom of that river." Of course, naturally, she was there with him doing praying all this time. She said, "No, early," she said, "you're in your bed." She said, "Oh, everything is all right." And that little old knocker, bless his heart, I'll tell you what, God has been with him, through him. He retired from the fire department. He went through the army in Korea. All of that God was with him. And he's sitting over there in Tennessee this afternoon. Will be 94 years old this coming November the 18th. And in presence of mind, got just as sound a mind as you want. He's driving himself to church on Sunday. He's reading and reading, praying and serving God and enjoying his family. And that's two pretty good testimonies.
Yeah, that sure is. What were some of the harder times you and Granddaddy had in your marriage and just in your life?
1988. There was on a Sunday afternoon, and I was getting ready to open up my ceramic shop out here, and we had went over to Rena David's, and they were there at Reiner and Cleo's, her mother's, daddy's. So we just stopped in there and visited there, and Rena and David, they had to go to the house for something. So Robert said, "Well, we need to go too." So we started coming on home. About halfway here, he got sick at the stomach and started vomiting. And he said, "Skinny, I'm sick as a dog." He said, I've got to go to the bushes. And so he got that all took care of, and we come on home, and he said, "I'm going to lay down a while." He said, "I don't feel good." And Rena said she got home, and she just felt such a need to come over here. And Rod David told her, he said, you just seen him over there." She said, "Yeah, but I got to go now." So they come in, and David asked me when he walked in the door, "Where's Daddy?" I said, "He's in the bed in there." I had given him a jet glass of orange juice because he was a diabetic. I thought his blood sugar had fallen or whatever. David went in there and told him, he said, "Dad, get up, we're going to the hospital." And Robert said, "All right." And I'd done told him all the way home, "Let's go to the hospital from here." "No, I'm fine." So we went to the hospital, and Rena and David went one way and I went the other. And anyway, we got there, and sure enough, he had had a heart attack and done some damage on his heart, lower lobe. And they said he'd have to go to Springfield and have a pacemaker put in. So we went up there, and that lasted, I guess, close to a week. And then he come home and started mending, but he wasn't able to hold up for the sawmill, and that's when he gave it to Robert Earl. But God brought him through that.
What year did he pass away? I don't remember exactly.
2002, yeah. Robert Earl passed away in 05.
How old was he?
Robert?
Your Granddaddy?
72. Robert Earl was 52 when he passed.
Let me see here. You told me a story here a long time ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was either about your dad or Granddaddy. Whenever somebody was on the river and they found a crocodile. Do you remember that story?
About what?
Somebody finding a crocodile. Was that your dad or was that Granddaddy?
That was my dad. He, him and a fella by the name of Vance Storter, he was an old fella there around Artona, about Daddy's age. Well, they was rivalry. I mean, they didn't get along in no way, shape, form, or fashion. Well, Daddy had the bridge open there one day, and the boat captain, he said, "There's a big old crocodile back down the river there. He said about 1.5 miles, and said he looks like that he's been wounded, even might be dead. And Daddy asked him what side of the river. He said, on your side there. So when Daddy got that bridge closed, he told Mama, he said, I'll be back in a little bit. Well, he took his old Model A, and here he went. He tore off down there and took Robert Earl with him. And got down there, and sure enough, it was a crocodile. We'd never seen a crocodile in that fresh water before, but it was in there. And but he was dead. So Daddy cut his head off and took it back to his house, and then sent word to Vance Storter. Vance was the one that had killed him, but he didn't know he'd killed him. But the old crocodile crawled up there after he shot him and died later. Well, Daddy got his old head. Well, Vance found out about that. Well, they had a few words over that situation. But anyway, they was at it all the time anyway.
I just remember you telling me that story, and I couldn't remember all the details on it. I just remember that stuck with me after all these years you told me. Let me see.
Robert Earl used to get on that man's, get over in his oranges and lemons and stuff, tangerines.
Just pick
Get
them.
in trouble, getting over stealing them, all that fruit. You know, because all that stuff growed wild.
Yeah.
It was across the road from where we lived down there in Ortona.
Yeah. Did you have a couple questions you wanted to ask her?
No, I've done heard it all.
I've got one.
Which one?
About gas prices.
Yeah.
What do you remember on gas prices and milk and stuff like that?
What were some of the gas prices whenever you and Granddaddy first got married? And
What was what?
how much did things cost whenever you were younger?
Well, when we come from Florida up here, you'd get 5 pounds of sugar for 49 cents. That was our special once in a while, you know. And a pound of Folgers coffee, that was $1.49 on special. And we had a little sawmill. Dan Norman had it, and he hooked it up over there at the Rayback place, beside the hill there. And once a month, I mean, we was tight run, but once a month, the sawmill would give us and Bill Thigpen and Johnny Smith and Dan Norman, we'd get $20. And believe it or not, we could go to Harrison. That was our day out. And we could go to Harrison, and we'd get us a pretty good little supply grocery with that $20 then. But Lord Jesus, it won't even buy you a hamburger today. Oh, good gracious alive. Gas, what was we paying for it then? $1.49, and that was a good one. That was a special. It wasn't all the time.
I remember when it was 65 cents.
Really?
Yeah, out there at Kingston, and it was high there, you know. And when it went up twice. I mean, it was, what is that, $1.30?
Yep.
Yeah.
But it doubled. When it went up double price. And that was leaded gas. That was not unleaded.
Yeah. What were who were some of your closest friends in your life?
In my life, old Bill and Nelma Thigpen, Marvin and Darsh Williams, and of course Robert's brothers and sisters. They was always choice, and all of them got along good together. And old Sally Valines, and Sonny, and Joan Daniels and her husband Jack and their 2 daughters, Charlotte and Johnny Smith, and oh gracious Lord. We had friends everywhere we went. We did, and we'd take old Bill Thigpen, he was our preacher down here, him and Nelma. We'd take them every Friday night. We'd either go to Harrison or we'd go to the all-you-can-eat catfish in Berryville. In Harrison, we'd go to the, what was the name of that place, David?
B.I.
Yeah,
Village Inn.
yeah. And we'd buy our preacher his steak for the week for that night. You know, him and his wife. We look forward to that. Old Bill, Ray and Shirley Prepper. He's the one that taught Robert how to do his woodworks, and we'd go out with them. We just had a lot of friends. We did. Patsy and Reuben Walter, and they went to the church there with us. Dan, Jackie Norman, and their family. We was close to old Dan and Jackie too.
This is one I had for you. What was it like going from being a mom to a grandma to a great grandma to a great great grandma? What has that experience been like?
Oh my goodness, joy for me. Oh my goodness, like I told Amy, when I do a lot of reminiscing out on that old ramp out there when I sit out there. I was sitting there the other day about the time I thought about the old shanty deal, all of young grandyoungins that come through there. But I thought of Amy seeing her first day of school when she got off the bus out there. Old Delano Newberry, her bus driver at that time. She got off and all, she looked so pretty. Well, that's, yeah, your mama. Mm-hmm. But Robert Earl come in a little while after that, and he said, he was sitting there when she come off, he said, "Ma," he said, "ain't that a pretty sight right there?" He said, "Now that's what I got in mind for a beautiful little daughter." I said, "Well, you got her there." Then we had old Tiffany and Robert when they were babies. We'd go to church on Sunday morning, and I'd usually hold them in church. But when we got out of that truck out there, or the van, whichever we had, he would walk around there and get them and bring them in and lay them right there on that table. And he would lay there and love and cut the fool with them. And it's just been a great, wonderful life. It has. I've had a great life. God has been so good to me, Lord. I never dreamed I would live to be 100. Yeah, may bring it on, Lord. 90 this coming October. But He's blessed me, and I've got, I think, a pretty good mind, memory, and just been so blessed. All I've ever had was a tonsillectomy and a gallbladder removed. That's all I've ever had done in the hospital, and had a few trips over there with David and Rena, but it was most generally just a need of potassium or something like that. But I have been blessed.
Tell him about Amy in the first grade, Miss Beard.
Do what?
With Miss Beard.
Oh, Amy. Her first year in school down there, Miss Beard, she come home one day and she said, "Grandma," that's when they lived right over there. She said, "Grandma, you pray a lot." She said, "I want you to pray for my teacher." I said, "What's wrong with her?" She said, "Grandma, she just screams and hollers at us all the time." And she said, "It just scares me so bad." She said, "Do you think the Lord will hear your prayer over that?" I said, "Amy, God hears our prayer no matter what. Whatever the need, He's there." She said, "All right." She said, I want you to pray for her. She won't never be screaming and hollering like she does at us." So I prayed and, just got at it. So, and here after a little while, Miss Beard went to Wendy. She said, "Wendy," she said, "I didn't realize I was such a bad teacher." And Wendy said, "I didn't either." She said, "Well, evidently your daughter thinks so. Amy thinks so." She said, she told me, she said, I was correcting some of them in the class here this past week. And she said, that little thing, she jumped up out of her desk. She said, "Miss Beard, no, you can't do that no more." She said, "My grandma's been praying for you not to be screaming and hollering at us anymore." So I'm still praying, Tristan. I'm still, all of these grand youngins, great grand, and them two precious little great greats. I'll tell you what, Oh my Lord, have mercy.
What was Mom and Robbie and Tiffany like whenever they were younger? Were they all different personalities? Were they all Spitfires? Just
Oh, Tiffany, after they moved over here to Robert Earl's place, which was what, Robert passed in '02, and I don't know, they lived there about 4 years, I guess, before Robert died. Was it that long or shorter, David?
I don't know how long they was on Sweden Creek. I mean, Robbie was a big old kid out there on Sweden Creek. 'Cause I remember them talking about the dogs and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Anyway, Tiffany, her and Robbie, they'd get off of the bus at home down there, and in the evenings, and most of the time they'd come down here, be with me for a while before they'd go back, before Wendy got off from school, because she worked at school, Robert Earl Mill. But anyway, Amy, she didn't come as often, but you knew when Amy was there that she was here. Yes, she's just always been such a blessing. She has, and still is. She comes so faithfully, just practically every 2 weeks to see me, and brings me a pile of goodies for my freezer that she's cooked and got in little containers, and got them in there so I won't have to cook a lot of the time. But they all of them. I'll tell you what. I was just telling my worker today about Brady, how that little thing. He used to come over here when I was doing ceramics, and I stayed busy up until sometime 10 o'clock at night. David and Rena'd come over and bring him and Brandon, and I'd have to be out there at the ceramic shop, and he knew that I had to keep my eye on what I was painting, and he'd crawl up in my chair back of me, put one arm around me and hold on to this side, and he'd stand there and he'd talk to me and then visit with me, and he had a little old greenware horse in the greenware. That means they hadn't been fired yet. But he started painting that thing, and there ain't no telling how many coats of paint it's got. They're all different, but it's probably still out there in the ceramic window today. And Brandon, we had such precious memories with him and Betty. He loved to get with Betty because she always wanted to give him a bath. And one day Rena said her and David was going home with him, and he said, "Betty's always got the gas or the heart attack." And they asked him what did he mean. He said, "Well, when she's giving me a bath, said she'll burp and say that's the heart attack, that's the gas." And then he said she'll have to sigh real big, and that's a heart attack. And but I can see him sitting in Betty's lap there in that old ceramic shop. She'd get her a book, and he loved to read and to be read too. And he wanted to get in her lap and let her read to him. Well, she had her own way of reading, and she would add all the adjectives and the verbs that needed to be put in there. And I said, I've seen him just laugh and giggle and just fall over on her chest there, just laughing and enjoying her. And she loved them young'uns, that's for sure she did. Oh, Lord.
what was Papa Tractor and Uncle David and Renelda like whenever they were kids?
When he was a kid,
Yeah, what was he like, and what was Papa Tractor like?
what was he like?
Yeah, what was his personality growing up?
Well, about the first thing everybody remembers, everybody loved him. I mean, by the time I walked in church with him, somebody took him from me. I didn't get to hold him no more till I got ready to come home. But anyway, he would, if he didn't have his way every time, he'd just fall down in the floor like that and kick him off a fit. I mean, he was kicking it. Jumped right up and said, "Did you see that?" And laughed, you know. And that Darrell, he still remembers that. He'd pick that thing up and he would love and hug on him like he was a little gold piece. But he was a wonderful addition to our family. He was, and he still is. He is, absolutely. Don't know what I'd do without them two things. They're sitting there listening to me, but it's the truth.
Well,
I know Marvin Williams come up here one summer. He was one of the neighbors down there. He had a hog farm, and he sold a lot of hogs to different people and whatever. And he come up that year with his motorhome, but he stayed over there with us when we lived in the shanty. And David was in high school at the time, and old Marvin come in that morning at breakfast time. He said, "Juanita," David had just left on the bus. He said, "I want to commend you and Robert on your sons." He said, "Robert Earl has always been a prime example of a perfect son. But," he said, "I'll tell you what," he said, "that David's following right in his footsteps." He said, "That's the best young'un I ever seen in my life." He had been here with us about a week. He said, "You don't never know he's on the place." He said, "He's so mannerly and so polite." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that." But yes, they've been a good one. He has. I just want him to step into his mantle from the Lord God above.
Uncle David, sure you didn't have any other questions? But you told me to ask about a couple before we started.
Tell the story on how the shanty got his name.
Oh, Lord, David. When we first moved into the house, Robert and I made a trip to Florida to get Betty to bring her back to stay with us for ever how long. Well, she come in here and she went through every drawer, every room and everything. And finally, last I took her, in her bedroom. I said, "Now this is your bedroom." She said, "My bedroom?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, praise the Lord." Well, she got her notification that this was part of her house too. Robert Earl come over one time.
They had just moved in
Yeah.
over there at that the old house.
Yeah.
And him and David, all of them, they always cut the fool with Betty. And of course, she could give him a few words once in a while too about it. And Robert Earl was cutting up with her there, and she told him, looked up at him, and she said, "Get your A back to the shanty and don't come back." And that's where the shanty got its name.
You know what that shanty means, right? I don't want to sound racist on the video, but black people housing,
Gotcha.
N-word shanty. That's what a shanty is. I mean, it's a poor housing development. They're
Gotcha.
all shanties.
Gotcha.
And that's what Betty was calling it.
Yeah.
I told
I mean,
Amy
she
about
moved into the new built house, but told Robert Earl to get his hiney end back to the shanty in those words.
I was telling Amy the other day, she said something about the shanty. I said, "By the way, Amy, do you know how the shanty got its name?" She said, "I guess 'cause it's just run down, Grandma." I said, "No." And I told her what Betty told Robert Earl. Well, that tickled that thing. She said, "I never heard that." I said, "Well, there's where the shanty got its name."
Do you have any more? I was trying to remember the two you told me to ask before we got started.
I can't remember what
I'll have to
said.
tell you this one about Betty and mine, her trip to Edwards grocery store in Harrison. This is not very nice either. Anyway, she always had to push the buggy for me. That was her desire. So I had 2 or 3 things in my hands waiting on her to come on around the aisle. Well, she didn't come. So I walked back over there into the aisle where she was at, and she was standing there looking at this man, and he was, and I caught her eyes. "Come on," I said. she got over there to me. She said, I said, you're not supposed to stand there and look at somebody like that. After all, she's Down syndrome. And I said, she said, why? I said, he's pitiful. She said, I'm pitiful too, but he's crazy as hell. I'll tell you what, that Robert Collier just about busted a gut on that one. Oh, my.
Well, I got one more question for you. Is there anything you'd like to say to everybody, like all the family that's going to be watching this, and
Oh, Lord.
any advice you'd give us just going on the rest of the time?
Lord, all I say, it's been a great, great life. I don't know how much longer I got, but I'll tell you what, I've had a great one. We have went through many valleys. Yes, we have. Given up that little girl of ours, given up that oldest son of ours, given up that greatest man in the world, Robert Collier, and he knew it before he died too. He did know it, that he was the greatest. But it's been a great life. I have no regrets. All I want to do is just get closer to know my Lord more. And I want all my family in. That's my daily prayer. Come into that Ark of the Covenant. My Lord have mercy. Yes, yes. Get to know Him as your Savior and your Lord.
All righty. Thank you, Grandma, for sitting down and talking to us.
Oh, Lord, Tristan, mercy God.
I've been wanting to do this for a long time and just finally had the opportunity to. I'm just tickled to death we got to do it.
The only thing, you'll have to bring my babies over to see me.
Well, Mom's going to have them tomorrow. I might see if she can bring them over for you.
Oh, good deal.
Me and Millie got to go to a wedding tomorrow.
That'd be good.
But I'll
yes.
ask her if she'll come see you.
She told me y'all, Millie done took her for their first dental work.
Yeah, that went pretty good. That she couldn't hardly get them out of the
Did
lobby.
they ever got a tooth in their head?
Oh yeah.
Have they?
Yes, they've been biting Millie like crazy. I mean, they walk up to her and they bite her on the knee, and then they'll sit there and laugh at her. But they couldn't keep that. They couldn't.
They are so precious. I'll tell you what. We was talking about David Greena's grandyoungins. Lord God, that oldest one, she's 13 now, and it just does not seem possible. That baby going to be 6 years next month, the next week. Well, week after next now.
Man.
But no, it's been wonderful. I'll tell you, we have been blessed with a wonderful lineage. God's been so good to us. I just wish Robert had had longer with them. And Robert Earl, yes, oh yes.
Alrighty. Thank you, Grandma.